Okay,
All
good
right.
morning, everybody. I think that we are live now.
Welcome back to another spring series or a series from the Food Systems in Season with UF-IFAS Extension in the Central District. And today we have Dr. Bill Lester, we have Dr. Norma Samuel, Lori Johnson, and I'm Wendy Lynch, all in the Central District. And today, Dr. Samuel and Lori Johnson will be our presenters. And just so you know, upcoming, we also have topics on reducing food waste. We have a highlight from our 4-H Youth Development Food Systems projects, also mindfulness, a little bit of visiting in our garden, and as well as sustainable living, preserving your harvest. So we have a big lineup for our spring series. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Norma Samuel.
Thank you so much, Wendy and Bill, for having me back. So for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. And this is the perfect time of year for you to get your spring garden started. So I am very thrilled to be invited back to talk to you about vertical gardening. So if you're looking to garden and you don't have a lot of space and you want to plant vegetables, you can certainly do it with the ideas that I'm going to present to you today. So don't think you need to have a lot of space in order to have a vegetable garden. These are the things I'll cover with you briefly: the benefits of vertical vegetable gardening. And I have a system that I put up in my backyard that I call an herb tower. So it's just outside of my back porch. So it's easy to access from the kitchen. And I call it the herb tower. I like to cook with herbs. So I'll show you how you could set one up, and it's very easy and it's not expensive. And then the other one is the elevated bucket system. And I'll show you that. And I also have a video that you can view later on that. Now, what are the benefits of vertical vegetable gardening? It's a way for you to effectively use the small space that you have. Now, in order for you to have a vegetable garden, you need to have 6 to 8 hours of full sun. If you're growing herbs, you can get away with about 5 to 6 hours because you're just growing those for the greens. But if you're going to grow tomatoes and peppers, anything that has a bloom that's going to fruit, preferably closer to the 8 hours of full sun. So once you have that 8 hours of full sun, 6 to 8 hours of full sun, and you want to grow fruiting type vegetables, you are good to go. You'll encounter fewer disease problems. As you know, when you plant in the soil, you have, soil-borne diseases that you have to contend with. So if you're planting vertically, it's a way for you to get away from some of those diseases, especially a problem that we call root knot nematodes that is prevalent in our sandy soils. So you can get away from root knot nematodes by growing vertically. You also have cleaner produce because your produce are not touching the soil. Because they're in the air, then you don't have to worry much in terms of getting soil off of your produce because they're not resting underground. Based on what I have seen in my backyard on the vertical gardening, it's also a way for you to increase your yields on some crops because you're not going to be having as much, disease problems. And of course, if you have a back problem, as some people do as, they get older, it saves your back. So instead of constantly bending over and pulling weeds, and tending to those plants, you will be able to just stand upright and tend to your plants. And another thing I should have added to that is fewer weeds. So this is my herb tower, and it's simply a landscape timber that has been inserted about 2 feet down into the ground. And I have an assortment of herbs planted in those pots. So the materials that you need are 26 6-inch plastic pots. And you probably are going to ask, well, why are you needing so many pots for just one length of landscape timber? And I'll explain that to you in a minute. You'll need to have 13 nails or screws to get those pots secured. And of course, a hammer or screwdriver, whichever you prefer, a post hole digger, or if you don't have a post hole digger, that's fine. Just get a shovel. And if you don't have the capacity to dig around 2 feet deep, certainly find, a young man or a young woman who's strong and can do that for you. And our soils are very sandy, so don't be scared about, digging that deep. Then you'll notice that I painted my landscape timber blue. That is optional. It's just that my house is blue and I had some extra paint, so I decided to paint it blue. Then you'll need potting soil or potting mix, and you'll need 13 herbs of your choice, or you can have multiple of the same things, and you can have a micro irrigation system if you'd like. I do not have a micro irrigation system on mine. I just go out and water them every day. It's just a way for me to, be out there and monitor my plants, instead of just having the system automatically come on. So here's what this looks like. And what I've done with this herb tower is that I alternate, the pots around the landscape timber. So instead of putting all of them coming down one side, I alternate them. So they're at different, areas around the entire landscape timber. So what I've done is that I've added, I have a plastic pot, which I've secured here with 2 nails. And I don't know, Bill, if I should make my screen full screen for them to see better. Would they be seeing full screen on their screen, Bill, or are they seeing my thing? Okay.
They will now.
Okay, wonderful. So as you can see here in this photo on the left, I actually used 2 nails, and I drive the nails in, and then I, bend the top of the nail over, just because I was using nails without head. That was all the nails I had at the time. So because I didn't have nails with head, I bent the nails over, so that way it helps to secure the pot onto the wood. Now, once I had that pot secured on the wood, the outer pot, then I have my pot that I've planted with herbs that I just drop into that pot. And voila, just like that, you have a planted herb garden. Now, the potting mix that I use, it says feeds for around 6 months. So I don't have to worry about fertilizing very often. And I water every day. So in the mornings, I would water before I go to work. And, that will take me through the day. Now, if you're on a hot side, you have it like on the west side of your house, your pots may dry out, so you may have to water again in the afternoon. But try and water so that the plants have time to dry off before the sun sets, and direct your water to the base of the plants preferably. Okay, so the next system I have is what we call the elevated bucket system. And many of you may be familiar with the popular topsy-turvy system that you've seen on TV. And, those bags do work. However, for our weather in Florida, the bags only last, 1 season. So you plant a crop in there, and the bags deteriorate, so you don't get to plant multiple times. So my husband decided that he was going to try doing it in buckets because the bucket should last longer than the bags. So our kids had outgrown a swing we had in the backyard, and we decided we were going to use that swing to grow the system. So what we did is that we planted the tomatoes at the bottom, but then we realized, hey, there's, soil here at the top. We could plant something at the top. And so that's what we did. So we used the bag the first season. We grew tomatoes at the bottom. And then the next season we decided that we were going to plant, squash or cucumbers at the top. So that's what you see here. And I should say that I'm not advertising for Home Depot or Walmart or Lowe's when you see them on here. So it's just where we got the buckets from, and the buckets are not expensive at all. So here are the materials that you'll need. You'll need 2 landscape timber. You'll need 3 2x4 pieces of wood, and the length that you make these, the 2x4s all depends on how much space that you have. Get some very long nails that would go through the length of the wood. Then 5 hooks. If you're going to use 5 buckets on your system, you'll need 5 hooks, and 5 5-gallon buckets. We use a combination of potting soil and compost. When we use potting soil alone, it became too compact in the buckets. So we added some compost, or you can use a combination of potting soil and potting mix. And that way you have a more friable or loose soil that doesn't become compact. Then you'll need 5 tomato plants, and then you'll need 10 zucchini or cucumber seeds, whatever, or yellow squash seeds, whichever you prefer. And I generally plant 2 seeds per bucket. So just in case one doesn't germinate, the other does. And I still keep both of them in there. Now, if you could go back one slide, Bill. So you see on this particular slide that the buckets are all, looking different heights. And that's because the buckets get weighted after a while with the soil and the plants. And so the buckets kind of get, sag, if you want to call it that way. So go back to the next slide, or go forward. And you see here what a master gardener by the name of Fred, he saw the system and he was like, oh, here's what you could do to improve on the system. And he was the one who recommended that we put the 2x4s on each side of the landscape timber. You attach them there, and then you let the buckets rest on top of there so the buckets become more stable. So that's what you see here. Next slide, please. Okay, so here are the step-by-step instructions. So you get your buckets and you drill some holes in the bucket. You can drive the holes with a nail and hammer. You need a nail with a good point though. But the drill works better preferably. And you drill some holes all around the sides and the bottom. Now, whenever you're working with container gardening, it's very important that you have holes for drainage, or you'll get a lot of root rot. The next step, at the bottom of the bucket, you have this circle that's generally at the bottom of buckets that are probably about 2 inches in diameter. You cut that circle out. Then the next step is that you get a piece of cardboard, probably around 6 inches in diameter. So and you can have it in a circle or a square. It doesn't matter. And then with this piece of cardboard, you make a slit in the cardboard, and then you make a little hole smaller than the 2 inches here. So remember, this is 2 inches. So you want something smaller than the 2 inches. And the reason why you're using this cardboard is to prevent the sharp edges of the from that hole in the bucket from cutting your tomato plants when you put them in. Next. So here you can see we have a tomato seedling, and what you'll do is to put the tomato seedling into that slit. So remember, you have that slit in the cardboard that goes to the little circle, so you can see it better here. So here's that slit, and there's the circle. So you just guide the tomato, stem through that slit, and then you flip it over like this. And then you're gonna guide it. You're gonna, hold the leaves and then guide them through the hole. Next slide. So this is what it looks like. So you've guided it through the hole, and then you're going to add your soil. One thing I should tell you, both for this and for your herb tower, whenever you're using potting soil, try and wet the soil first before you use the soil, because it's going to get harder for you to get all of that soil wet eventually. So it's better that you get a tub and you dump all the soil or the mixture that you're going to use in that tub, and then get a hose, you wet it down. You don't want it to be like very soggy, just enough moisture, like a wrung out sponge. And that way you have some moisture in there to start. So then you put your soil in, and then you put your bucket on top of those two pieces of wood. When the plant starts to grow, as it continues to grow, it's gonna curve upwards, because naturally they're supposed to be growing upwards and not down. But don't get scared with the fact that they're curving upwards. They're gonna curve upwards at first, but then they're eventually gonna grow downwards. So here's what it looks like. You can set up a drip system on this with a timer also, or you can hand water these. And this is just what some of the yields look like in terms of the tomatoes and in terms of, cucumber. So this one with the cucumber is from the swing. Now, what type of tomatoes you should use on this? You can use what we call determinate varieties. The determinate varieties are those that are gonna grow to a certain height and then they're gonna stop. We've also grown indeterminate varieties in there, like cherry tomatoes, and they do fine. But if you're gonna be using an indeterminate variety, you'll need to have your system a bit higher, so that way you have enough room for the tomatoes to grow down. The other thing you can do, if you have a indeterminate variety that you like, you may just have to be pruning so that the leaves doesn't rest on the stems and leaves doesn't rest on the ground. Next slide, and I think so. The Florida Vegetable Gardening Guide is an excellent resource for you as gardeners, gardening in whether you're in Central Florida or in Florida in general. The key is to stick to the dates that they provide you. So we're in Central Florida, and in Central Florida, now is the time to get your spring garden in. So look at the list of crops and see the recommendations for time of planting for the crops that you like to eat, and start from there. Now, I do have a YouTube channel called Let's Talk Gardening, and in episode 4 that was posted on April 4th, we show you there a demonstration of how to set up the bucket system. And you can find me on Facebook at the Urban Hort FFL Sumter Facebook page, and the Grow Your Plate Vegetable Gardening course is online, and I'll provide information on that in the coming weeks on how to do that. So with that, that's it for me. And if any questions, I'll be on here for the rest of the time and we'll be happy to answer those for you.
Okay, that was great, Norma. We do have a question here from DuPaul. Can baby watermelons be planted vertically? So can you try growing watermelons in a vertical system?
You probably can, but if, depending on the weight of it, you may have to, find a way to support it. Now, watermelon is one of the crops that I don't grow, so I don't have a lot of experience with watermelons just because I don't eat watermelons.
I like watermelons, but they can be really hard to grow. You have a lot of disease problems usually with watermelons. That's what I've always found.
Yes, they do have a lot of diseases. Like you can have like downy mildew, powdery mildew, gummy stem blight, and the list goes on.
Okay, well, I think next we have Lori's going to show us how to prepare some of these things and give us a little cooking demonstration here also.
All right. Thank you so much.
Lori, let me go ahead and, I'm sorry, let me go ahead and open up your PowerPoint here. And wanted to make mention of something that Wendy mentioned earlier. We want to remind everybody that this is just the first of our spring series. So next Friday, we're going to have ways to reduce food waste with Lisa from Sumter County also, and a few other people talking about 4-H agricultural products. The week after that is something that I think that we could all benefit from, mindful eating and experiences in the garden. And then March 25th, preserving your harvest with Luann and Melanie. And then our very last episode for the spring season is going to be an open question and answer session where we're hoping to get all of our different presenters back to answer any other questions that you might have. And hopefully some special guests from the University of Florida also. We're kind of working on that right now. See, we have another question or two here. And Wendy mentions that we really appreciate your feedback in our short surveys. Thanks to everybody who's completed those during the previous sessions. And I put those in the chat. So there should be a link in the chat. And as we're going on, as always, if you have any questions, just go ahead and put it in the chat. And then whether it's for Norma, she's still here, or Lori, we'll go ahead and try to answer all those questions at the end. But I think it's Lori's turn to talk a little bit about what you do with all these wonderful vegetables that we can grow here in the spring in Florida.
All right, so good morning, everybody. We are going to start with some herbs. So I have a couple of different herbs here, and a lot of times we're afraid of the fresh herbs because we don't know how to take them off the stems or what parts to use. So I'm just going to quickly show you just a few here. So first I have some thyme, and I apologize, it's really small because mine is still growing at home. But what you can do, and a lot of times the stems are a bit stronger. What you can do is just take your finger at the top and just pull the leaves towards you, and they will start to come off. If you have thyme, kind of like I have right now, it's not strong enough to do that, you can always just pick the leaves off. And some of the stems may be okay. Sometimes it gets a little woody, but you can just pick the leaves off. Thyme is really great in veggies and soups and breads, and pairs well with chicken. So lemon and thyme together in a baked chicken gives you a really great flavor. Also sauteing zucchini. So sauteing is using a little bit of oil. We want to use healthier oils like olive oil and canola oil because that's going to be heart healthy for us. But sauteing some zucchini up, and then also remember our desserts don't always have to be those sweet that we all love, but maybe shouldn't eat as much as we do. So we can enjoy some natural sugars in things like a baked apple and add some thyme on there as well. And then I have some mint here. So my mint's a little bit stronger. So this is some spearmint. And the spearmint, you want to just take the mint, you just want to take the leaves off, and you want to stack them up by size. So the biggest on the bottom and then the smallest on top. And then you're just going to fold them over. And then you just want to either using your knife, and always remember to cut away from yourself, so you can make short strides forward, or you can also take a pair of kitchen shears, and you can also snip it into the size that you want. Just make sure they're clean kitchen shears, so you're not spreading any bacterial germs every time you use your kitchen shears. Make sure you sanitize them well. And mint is really great with fruit salads. So I always love a fruit salad. It's really refreshing. So especially watermelon pairs really nice. Also pairs well with meat kebabs, with maybe a mint yogurt sauce. And then quinoa is another great addition to kind of flavor that quinoa up with some mint. And quinoa is a whole grain, and so that's going to be healthy for our heart and great for our digestive system. Also, you can use a cilantro mint sauce for some fish. Maybe you're grilling some fish this weekend and you want to create a little sauce. That might give you an idea. Also, if you're not crazy about drinking water, maybe flavoring your water with a little bit of mint leaves will give you that refreshing and cool flavor and give you a different taste. Also, I've used mint in stuffed shells. So adding a little bit to my pasta dish creates a good refreshing flavor and pairs well with those textures as well. And then I have some cilantro. I know some folks like cilantro and some folks don't, but I have some cilantro, and you can kind of stack the leaves up if they're similar, or you can just put them one stem at a time, and take your knife and kind of pull the leaves off the stem. And then I'm gonna kind of do one. And so then I'm pretty much left is with my one little stem, and then I have my little leaves, and then I can again use my kitchen shears. I know you guys can't see that, but I can use my kitchen shears or my knife. And remember, always keep your fingers behind the blade and always cut from yourself and make it to whatever size that you want. Cilantro is great in a lot of Latin or Asian dishes or Southwest dishes, seafood, tacos, some stir fries. So there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize these herbs, guacamole. So give those a try as well. And then also our parsley chops up just like cilantro to take a sharp knife and cut it forward. And I have some right here. So you can just take that knife and just cut it forward, cut it right off the stems. And then if that's too challenging, again, you can just use your kitchen shears and chop it all up. But flat leaf parsley is going to give you, Italian parsley is going to give you more fragrant than curly parsley, because that's going to be a little bit more of a bitter texture. Those are used more for garnishes. So again, parsley can be used for soups and stews, summer salads, with tomatoes and cucumbers and onions. You can also make tabbouleh, which is a parsley salad with onions and tomatoes and olive oil and a little bit of lemon juice and another whole grain called bulgur. So you can serve that on the side, and it can be part of an appetizer. It's a really great way to get in some fresh herbs and veggies and whole grains. And then also you can use parsley in egg dishes. Maybe you're making a quiche for breakfast tomorrow or on Sunday, in your pastas, in making your homemade pesto, and also in some chicken dishes. Lots of different ways you can use fresh herbs. And if you have them left over, don't throw them away. Make sure if you've growing them, then you can pick off what you've grown. But if you're purchasing at the store and you have some left over and you don't want to waste them, you can take a ice cube tray, clean those herbs up and put them in the ice cube trays, and then fill them with water or olive oil. And then make sure all the herbs are underneath the liquid. Freeze them. When it's frozen, pop them out into a freezer-safe bag, label and date it, and then you can put that in the soups or the foods that you're creating, and then you have those fresh herbs preserved, so you're eliminating waste. and using more of the food that you have. All right, so next we're going to move on from herbs, and we're going to talk about tomatoes that Norma was mentioning how you can grow. So let's talk a little tomato nutrition. So they have vitamin A, which is going to be great for our vision, vitamin C, which is going to be great for our immunity, and potassium helps with our blood pressure and really our heart function. So a lot of great nutritional benefits from tomatoes. So now that we grow them, what should we do with them? So we can make a delicious homemade salsa. Always making it yourself helps control sodium, which is in a lot of packaged and foods, and so higher sodium raises our blood pressure, leads to heart disease. So we want to try to make sure that we're cooking more, using more fresh herbs and seasonings and less salt. And so salsa is a great way of making something at home. Of course, you can use them on any kinds of salads you like. A salad I like to make is a tomato, peach, and watermelon salad. So this is just taking the juice of a fresh lime and about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and a little bit of honey, some salt and pepper, about 2 cups of tomatoes, 3 cups of seedless watermelon, and about 1.5 cups of sliced peaches, a little bit of red onion, and then some mint and basil leaves. Mix that all together a little bit in advance, put it in the fridge, and it really makes a great salad to share with friends, add to your barbecues. You can also make your own homemade sauce. So I know I had extra tomatoes this last season and I needed to use them up quickly. So I made my own sauce. So think about it as the rule of 4. So I used 4 tablespoons of olive oil, 4 cloves of garlic, and 4 cups of tomatoes. And then I added some fresh basil. I cooked it all down. I let it cool off. And then I put it into freezer safe containers and labeled and date it. And then I just pull it out in the portions that I need to use on my pasta sauce or any other dishes that I'm creating. So don't waste what you're growing at home, and make sure that you use every bit in a variety of different ways. Gazpacho is a great cold tomato soup. And so especially with our Florida heat, that's a great way to stay cool. You can also roast your veggies and tomatoes included. So again, roasting is on a single, you're putting that on a single layer on a cookie sheet at a high heat. Before we put it on that cookie sheet, we want to just toss it in some olive oil and those fresh herbs we have available. It really doesn't take long, especially for tomatoes, to get roasted. But it's really important that it's on a single layer and then flipping them over halfway through and then cooking them to the doneness that you would prefer. Next, we're going to talk about cucumbers. So cucumbers have a lot of the same nutrition we just talked about, plus fiber is really great for our gut health and vitamin K in blood clotting. You can use, of course, cucumbers in different salads and sandwiches and wraps. Just slice them up and put them in, sneak them in wherever you can. Will add extra crunch and flavor and, of course, nutrition to your meals. A dip I like to make is tzatziki, featured in that picture right there. So I take 4 cups of Greek yogurt, and Greek yogurt is going to have double the protein of regular yogurt, and 4 cloves of garlic. And then I take a large cucumber and I use my shredder here, and I shred it, and then make sure you put it in cheesecloth or paper towel and get all of the water out of it. So there's going to be a lot of water, and it's really important to make a really good dip that you get all the water out. So squeeze it out, and then add in 1/3 cup of olive oil and 1/8 cup of white vinegar, and then as much dill to your liking, and then put that in the fridge and let that sit for just a little bit. And then you have a great refreshing dip that you can enjoy with lots of great nutrition and using your cucumbers that you've grown. Next, we're going to talk about zucchini. So zucchini is a powerhouse for vitamin C, and vitamin C is going to help with our immunity. It's going to help heal cuts and wounds. So we want lots of vitamin C. And so one thing I really like to make with zucchini is lemon garlic zucchini noodles. So I have on our UF IFAS Extension County YouTube channel, under the Family and Consumer Science playlist, I have a variety of videos, but one of them is these noodles. And so how I make these noodles is with a spiralizer. If you've not seen one before, it just looks like a little cone shaped. And you just put it in and you just keep turning it, and your zucchini will turn into noodles. You can cook that up and you can add other proteins on it. You can use it as a side dish. It's very versatile. So I encourage you to check that out later. And maybe that's a new dish that you want to add to your menu and utilize your zucchini with. Next, we're going to go over to green beans, and that's going to be one of the foods that we're going to be cooking with today. So again, lots of great nutritional benefits, has lots of fiber, which is going to help with our digestion, vitamin A with our healthy skin, and potassium to help regulate our blood pressure and helps our heart function. When we're cooking with green beans, on our next slide, we can do a variety of different things. So sauteing, I mentioned before, with a little bit of heart-healthy oils, or we can steam them. You may have a that has a steamer built into it. If not, you can always get a steamer like this. They're very inexpensive at most stores, only a couple dollars. And so you would put boiling water below this steamer, and then you put this on top, you put your veggies on here, and then you put your lid on, and cooks in a very short period of time. This is a great healthy cooking method because you're not losing all those great vitamins through the water because they're not being cooked in the water. They're kind of being cooked on top of it. When we cook them in the water, then you're not using that water for anything else. You're kind of throwing out all those water soluble vitamins. So we want to keep all that good nutrition and get a good nutritional bang for our buck. So using a steamer is a really easy tool and very inexpensive. Again, the other thing you can do is roast veggies. That's one of my favorites. You just take whatever veggies you have. So our green beans here, you can put them in some olive oil and some seasonings, lay them in a flat pan, and roast them at a high heat. It can be used in soups and stews, salads. You can add some different dried fruits and nuts for different texture. Different texture in our foods keeps our foods interesting, plus giving us great nutrition. So feature here, or maybe some almonds or walnuts with our green beans. Other herbs to pair with green beans can be mint, oregano, thyme. They do really well with green beans. Other things to use with green beans could be lemon or mustard or tomatoes or onions. So you may see that in a lot of recipes, but be creative. You don't have to use a recipe just as it is. Use what you have on hand, make your own tweaks and creations, and you may find something new that you haven't enjoyed before. Otherwise, you can also make a 3-bean salad, and green beans can be a great part of that. And again, using an Italian dressing or a balsamic vinegar, and you can make your own homemade salad dressings. Again, you control the ingredients. So it's a great way to give you flavor and great nutrition at the same time. And then going over to our carrots, again, they have lots of great nutrition with vitamin A for our vision and vitamin K for strong bones and blood clotting. And then when we cook with carrots, we can also do a lot of those same healthy cooking methods I just mentioned. So sauteing them, steaming them, roasting them, or stir frying them. Stir frying them is an easy method. I love stir frying because it's kind of like you can use whatever you have, your kitchen sink basically, right? You can use whatever protein you would like, veggies you have available, and pairing with a whole grain. If you've not made a stir fry before, on that same YouTube channel for Lake County that I mentioned before, there's also a video on how to make a basic stir fry. So you can check that out, and maybe it'll inspire you to create your own stir fry. And it's a very inexpensive, quick, easy dinner. And again, you can use a variety of things in a stir fry, and you can give you a lot of flavor quickly. Other things that you can with carrots is just cinnamon and fresh orange juice, honey, and fresh parsley. So a lot of different flavor combinations. And again, I encourage you to be creative. So what we're going to do now is I'm just going to shift some things on my kitchen here, and we are going to cook some ginger carrot green beans. So we are ready, and then perfect. All right, so the recipe will be dropped in the chat box for you so that maybe you guys can try this out tonight or this weekend with your meals. So first you want to do is wash and peel and slice up your carrots, 3 carrots. So I already have some sliced, and I'll show you in the food cam. I already have some sliced, but I'm going to do one in front of you. So I just like to, this is already washed. I just like to take a little bit off the end, and this is great to put in your compost. And then I am just always remember any kitchen tools you use, always use them away from you for great safety. And then I don't like to take off a whole lot, so I try to be consistent and just do long strides to peel. And then I'm just gonna do the tops because this is a pretty big carrot. My peeler stuff. All right, put those up top. And then the size is up to you, but remember, if you bake bigger coins, it's going to take a little bit longer when you cook. So again, just start at one end of your carrot and always cut away from you. Keep your fingers behind the blade. Always make sure you have good grip of what you're cutting, and always make sure your knife is super sharp, so that way you're not tearing the textures of the food. And just make those coin shapes. And another trick, which I don't have right now, to make your cutting board not move like mine is right now, is to put a wet kitchen towel or paper towel underneath your cutting board so that it doesn't move. But I'm not cutting too much. I'll be okay. All right, so I have my carrots ready to go. And then we want to prepare our green beans. So I already have a pound of green beans washed, and most of them already cleaned up for you with the ends taken off, but I'm going to do a few in front of you. So again, I try not to waste too much. I just try to snap off a little bit at the end. And again, these are already washed, so they are ready to go. And if they don't snap and you're taking too much of your bean off, you can always cut it off, but it'll just take you a little bit longer. So I have those. And then I need to prepare my ginger. So I have a little piece of ginger right here. You can see in my hand. So first I just need to peel it. I'm going to take the ends off. I need to peel it and then thinly slice about 2 tablespoons. It's going to smell really good. I'm sorry that there's not smell vision on our cooking portion today, but using fresh ginger will give you a great aroma, and of course it tastes great as well. And if you get to, I'll put it under the camera, if you get to, maybe it's stuck, where it's like these little knobs, sometimes it's a little bit easier to cut them off and try to take the little bit off. We may not need that portion, so do what you can to use as much of it as possible. So this is asking for thin pieces. So again, I'm just gonna cut forward. I'm gonna make little pieces. All right, and so that will be our 2 tablespoons. All right, I'm going to, so then you just turn your stove on to your burner on to a higher heat. Let it heat up for a minute, and then I am going to move some things once again. So the first thing we're going to do is put 3 tablespoons of canola oil in. It's getting there. All right. I'm just going to put 3 tablespoons of canola oil. Let that heat up for a second. And then we're going to put our ginger. So I'll show you under the can. There we go. So that's my fresh ginger cut up. If I can show you. I'm just going to, before I add that in, I'm just going to swirl it around a little bit. All right. So we just put our fresh ginger in there, and we're just going to cook that for about a minute, because we don't want to burn it, because we're going to still be cooking our green beans and carrots, but we want to give it a little bit of head start before we add those in. About another 30 seconds. So let's see. Okay. I'm going to add in our carrots. And remember, with your veggies, you always want to have a lot of color and several colors throughout the day, because each of those colors are going to give you different vitamins and minerals, just as you saw on those slides earlier. So I'm just going to mix this all around, because this is actually going to cook for about 5 minutes to soften it up. And you can cook this to your preferred doneness. Usually tender crisp is preferred, and everybody's stove is a little bit differently, but usually about 5 minutes will do the trick. So while we're waiting for that, does anybody have any questions so far?
Okay, Lori, that looks great.
Yeah.
We do have a couple questions here, and if Norma's still here, she may want to go ahead and pop back on also, because they're kind of for both of you, I guess. So let's see. Simone says or asks, does pineapple sage require partial sun or full sun?
Pineapple sage does best in full sun.
And pineapple sage is very, very good for cooking too. I've grown it before, and it's really good. And Simone also asks, my chocolate mint grows well, but did not do so well last year. So any advice or hints or anything for growing chocolate mint?
Mints in general, I would say plant them in containers, because they tend to take over your garden. So whenever I'm growing mint, I grow them in containers. Maybe your soil mix may have been a problem if you have them in containers. The other thing is that mint does not like it wet. So you'll also want to watch the amount of water that you're putting on your mint. So those are some possible issues.
Okay, and we have one last question from Simone about pineapples. And she says, my pineapple plant is growing beautifully, but I've not gotten any fruit on it yet. So the question is, what am I doing wrong?
I'm afraid you're not doing wrong. Growing pineapple requires patience. So it's going to take 18 to 24 months before you actually get to enjoy a pineapple. Whenever you're planting pineapples, I like to say stagger your planting, so you get some coming in like every month, if possible. But it does require patience.
Yes, it does. It takes a while. And if you're in Central Florida, it takes a little bit longer because it does get cold up here. So if you live in Miami, it goes a little bit faster. But up here, you have to protect it from really cold weather. Otherwise, it can get damaged and knocked back some. But Simone, you're probably doing everything right if the plant is healthy and growing. It's just you need to be patient. It's just going to take a little bit more time, probably.
You learn patience from gardening, Bill.
Yes, you do. So, Lori, how are we doing here? That looks great.
Yes. I'm not sure how much you can hear over here, but it's sizzling a lot. So the veggies are starting to soften up a bit.
And Valerie just got a baby on her pineapple plant after it had been planted for a little bit over 2 years. So she fertilized it a few weeks ago and got a pineapple on it. So it takes time. It could take 2 years.
Mm-hmm. So Lori, you were using ginger, and I grew ginger for the first time this year in the US. It's something we're accustomed to growing at home, but I'd never grown it before here. So we grew it in containers and it did very well. We had quite a bountiful harvest. So it does require some shade. You can plant it now and then, you know, it will die back in the fall. That's about when you would harvest. And what I noticed on the varieties of ginger, when you go to the grocery store, the big fat ones, they're not as pungent as the skinny ones. So the skinny ones are the ones that I like because I like the potent ginger.
That's great to know. I haven't, I use a lot of ginger, and so that might be something I need to add to my garden this spring.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I've never tried growing it before, but I'm definitely going to try this year. I've wanted to for a while. And very important because we get asked every once in a while, there are a huge number of different gingers. Many of them are ornamental, and you don't want to grow and eat the ornamental ones. You need to grow and eat the edible ones. Yes, not every ginger is going to give you edible ginger root.
All right, so we are ready to add our rice wine vinegar. It's just a tablespoon. And then we are going to add a tablespoon of low sodium soy sauce. So this is another area, again, when you can use sauces that are low in sodium. It's just going to help be a heart healthy choice. So I'm just going to add that in real quick. Sorry, my camera is steaming up. And then just to finish it off on top, you just want to take a little bit of sesame oil. Sesame oil, a little goes a long way. So you just want to use just a tiny bit. It will give it a little bit extra flavor, but again, a little goes a long way. So just be careful. If using the bottle is going to tempt you to put more, you can always put it in a little bowl and pour it on. But I'm just going to sprinkle some on the top, just a little bit. And then I'm going to finish it off with some sesame seeds. And that's it. You have ginger, green beans, and carrots. I'm sorry that you can't all be here to enjoy this, but it's really quick and easy and a great way to use your harvest from your garden. Does anybody have any last questions?
Yes, if anybody has any last minute questions, if you go ahead and put them in the chat. We still have Norma here for answering the gardening questions and Lori for the cooking questions. And we're more than happy to do our best to answer. I don't see any other questions on here. So, Lori, do you have anything else you'd like to share?
Just if you guys could please fill out the survey that was mentioned, and that's very helpful for our programming. And on my YouTube channel, on the Family Consumer Science playlist for Lake County, there is a variety of videos. So if you're looking to try some different recipes or get some other meal ideas or tips to improve your health, please check it out. Thanks so much.
And Lori, if you send me a link to that, I'll go ahead and put it in the comments and everything underneath the video after the video is finished. So if everybody comes back,
okay, we'll do.
To watch the video again in the future, I'll put it down in the description so they can find it.
Sure
if I could make a comment.
Sure.
So you know, with vegetables, I like to be creative, and so some of the things that I like to try with vegetables, desserts. So some people like brownies, for example. And, you know, if you've ever tried zucchini brownies, have you ever tried that, Lori?
Zucchini how? I'm sorry.
Brownies.
No, I have not.
Yeah. So that is that's a lot healthier than just straight brownies, because you're adding zucchini to the brownie, but that's a way they're healthy, or less. Or, I'm not a nutrition person, so nutrition people
healthier fats
could have the terminologies for you, but certainly explore those options with your veggies also. And I guess maybe that could be one of the things we can have as some recipe options, some healthy recipe options in terms of desserts using veggies.
Great idea, Norma. And with that, you guys, I don't see any other questions or comments that we wanted to cover. Bill, we're good to go there?
Yes, ma'am. And I did go ahead and post the link for Lori's YouTube video page. It's in the comments down below, so you can see that and get some more cooking ideas and recipe ideas from there.
And she's got great videos. I've used them myself and learned some really great tips from those as well. But today, just wanted to say thank you so much, Dr. Samuel, and thank you, Lori and Dr. Bill. We are so glad to have you all back for another round of spring series of Food Systems in Season with UF-IFAS Extension here in Central District. Be sure to share it with your friends and come back and check us out next Friday. And we will have some info on food waste, as well as our food systems, 4-H, and youth development highlighted programs there. So thanks for being here, you guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. See you next week.